a fireside chat, and I'll start by calling upon the panelists to come and join in, and then I'll finish with the moderator. Our first panelist, ladies and gentlemen, is founder and CEO Red Swan. Please put your hands together for Ed Nokwedi as he comes forward. We're glad to have you here. Our second panelist, ladies and gentlemen, is Director, MediaPix Limited. This is none other than Ali Ramji. Let's appreciate Ali as he comes forward. Our next panelist, ladies and gentlemen, is the founder for 1 Million Avocado. Please help me appreciate Kevin Dylan as he comes forward. Welcome, Kevin. And now also to join the panel, ladies and gentlemen, is the head of operations at SafariX. Please help me appreciate Juliana Mwangi as she comes forward. Juliana, you're going head to head with the man, isn't it? All right. The next panelist is CEO and founder at Alpha Block. Please help me appreciate Trevor Kimani as he comes forward. And to moderate this particular discussion is a senior partner, TMM and Partners Advocates. Please help me appreciate Mr. Robert Moka as he comes to moderate the panel. All right. Welcome, good people, and we're looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope this won't be a boring panel. I can guarantee you that. So I think we can start off with the first question, and it will go towards Ali. So Ali, what are the key benefits of asset tokenization in terms of unlocking economic value? And how do these benefits compare to traditional assets?
Thank you for the question. First of all, does everyone know what asset tokenization is?
I think you could start with that, yeah. You could start defining what asset tokenization is.
All right, it's basically digitizing an asset and creating tokens via recording them on a blockchain. Am I correct, guys?
Yeah.
Yep. Any questions regarding that now? Okay. So the question was, what are the key benefits?
Yeah, the key benefits of asset tokenization.
So you have a number of key benefits. I think, when you look at asset tokenization, you look at fractionalized tokenization, which is the ability for specific assets to be fractionalized. The best example for this is real estate. And we know that there are large real estate projects that sometimes want to be sold. And in order to find a buyer, you might end up having a bit of difficulty. So instead of finding one buyer, you might be able to end up fractionalizing that asset into numerous tokens and sell them piece by piece. The other, another area of, or another benefit would be increased accessibility, all right? You're providing access to individuals who don't have the ability to purchase specific type of assets. So not everyone can buy a piece of, let's say, GTC over here in Nairobi. But if you fractionalize that and you sell it, through a blockchain, you sell, through tokens, you're able to end up buying that. Now, the other beauty is that you're able to also sell that. So the interesting aspect of that is increased liquidity, right? The other, benefit is increased transparency, right? And I think that, as an owner, you're able to see who buys it and who sells it. But at the same time, when you purchase it, you're able to see who had it before. So these are some of the benefits of tokenized assets or asset tokenization. Am I missing anything?
I think you've glossed over most of the things, unless Trevor or Ed, you want to add anything?
I think first of all, I'm Ed Nwakari and founder of Red Swan CRE. I think that since this is a young audience in the room, and I'm very happy to see such a young audience, but tokenization is some of the things you pay very close attention to. I know all of you probably have a lot of experience in cryptocurrency, and there's ups and downs and fluctuations in cryptocurrency. When you start looking at digital assets, you're looking at real world assets, like you said, real estate or avocado land, but it allows you to start buying pieces of real estate that you could never buy before. You look in the skyline, you see all these big buildings, you never think that you can be part of that. But now you can participate in ownership, and as that building makes money, you make money. And you want to decide to sell it, you can sell it and get your cash for it. So it actually, if the building is growing in value, your share of the building is growing in value. If the building is issuing dividends of 10%, you're getting dividends of 10% of your money. So I think it's a really good way for young people to start gaining wealth. I couldn't start buying real estate till I was adult, 21 years old, but I think now you can start buying real estate at any level and start slowly putting $100, $200, or 1,000 shillings, 2,000 shillings into a piece of property, and you can look back 10 years later, you probably have millions of dollars or shillings worth of property because you started buying slow.
I think you've gone through that brilliantly. Trevor, you could follow up on that. As also you answer this question, how does asset tokenization democratize access to investment opportunities, particularly for retail investors and individuals in emerging markets such as Kenya?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Similar to what Ed was saying, if you think about where the world has come from, when everyone is talking about financial inclusion. So maybe 10 years ago, when people wanted to send money home from abroad, you'd actually have to hold on to the money you have for like 3 months before you send it home because the transfer fees were very expensive. So you'd rather hold on to your funds and take, like a 3-month upkeep for your people at home and just incur that one transaction fee. But now when digital remittance companies came into the play, what happened was that you could actually send money even twice a month because of digitizing it made it a lot more efficient and hence cost effective. That significantly increased the amount of remittance flows into Africa, for example. In fact, in Kenya, it led to us sort of overtaking foreign direct investment as a source of income for the country. So that made the country self-sustained. So the same thing is happening for asset classes such as real estate. Real estate is, especially in the developing world, is really difficult to access as an asset class. The financial markets are not as mature, so loans are really expensive. You want to invest in an asset and get the best return, so you ideally should cut out as many costs as you can, and a loan is one of the biggest costs. For example, in Nigeria, a loan could cost you like 30% per annum. How are you going to invest in an asset that you need to pay off in 10 or 20 years and you're paying 30% per annum? It does not make sense, especially as an investment. So tokenizing actually reduces the entry barrier, increases the number of people that you can that can access that asset, and hence deepens the capital markets. Now, when you have a deep capital market, you reduce the risks of the capital markets, you increase the stability of the capital markets, and hence you end up creating an environment where these products can really be delivered to people who want to access it but could not access it before in a safe and efficient, cost-effective way. So, yeah, basically that's how it's done.
I think you've glossed over that brilliantly. So over to you, Kevin. From your experiences in tokenizing agricultural products, asset classes, what are the unique challenges and opportunities presented by this specific asset class?
Thank you for that. How many of you have taken avocados before? I have to be on topic, right? How many know where those avocados came from? Yeah, the farm, the exact farm where those avocados came from. That is one of the benefits of blockchain in tokenizing agricultural assets. Because once you understand the traceability of this particular tree, what was the production process behind these avocados, what inputs were given to this particular tree, let me not specify on avocados alone. That's one key area. There's so much opportunity there because Kenya is losing over 110 million yearly just because on avocados alone, just because we lack traceability. So blockchain technology will really help due to its immutability purposes, we're able to understand where these avocados came from, what was the process that led to the growth of these avocados, and how did it get to me. So that's one of the opportunities here.
Yeah.
And as Trevor has said, and also Ali has said, he talked about bringing capital, and in our case, specifically for farmers. All of us here know a farmer or two, and especially as Kenyans, farming is the backbone of our economy. So if you're able to bring capital to these farmers using blockchain technology, really we are able to increase our production and eventually increase our economic value as on an agricultural point of view. But if you're looking at the challenges, one of them definitely will be the technicalities of blockchain technology are a bit difficult for farmers to really understand. So we would like to doing farmer awareness. How do we reduce these barriers of entry specifically for farmers? Thank you.
Wow. That's interesting. Hopefully some of us can get avocados after this session.
We have some. You can come for them.
So over to you, Ed. Especially having a company in the US, what are the key regulatory considerations for asset tokenization, or you'd consider for asset tokenization in an emerging economy such as Kenya?
That's a very good question, because regulatory jurisdictions and compliance is a key problem, because we're selling securities in the United States, selling shares of a property or shares of anything that's making money. So if I'm selling shares of a gold mine, or selling shares of a piece of real estate, or selling shares of a toll road, these are called securities, and securities mean you have to have a license in order to sell securities. In the United States, we applied for our license 2 years ago. We obtained our RRA license, which is Registered Investment Advisor license, which allows us to sell to you and give you advice. But also, most recently, our digital securitization broker-dealer license, which allows us now to legally sell shares of real estate to customers in the United States as well as around the world. So we are actually here in Kenya, and we were in Nigeria, gaining business so we can pick up more projects that we can tokenize and make available for all of you to buy into. So we think that's a big opportunity. So I think with the regulatory, main fact is getting the license, but the license is really there to protect the citizens, so that you see what's happening with crypto. You can run up and then run down, you can get rug pulls, and you really don't know if you're gonna have your money in the bank yesterday or today. When you're buying hard real estate assets, you can go and touch the property that you invested in. You can see it every day. You drive by and you see that property, say, hey, I own 1,000 shares or $1,000 worth of that property, and you can see it and monitor it every day. I think that's very important, and that's kind of a real distinction between real world asset tokenization and cryptocurrencies.
Could you introduce yourself, like in terms of what exactly you do?
Yeah, so I'm Ed Nwakati. I'm founder of Red Swan CRE. We're based in the United States. We've been tokenizing commercial real estate since 2018. We've put about $5 billion worth of tokenized real estate from the United States on the blockchain. We just been awarded a $4 billion assignment in the Middle East, in Qatar and Abu Dhabi. So we are taking these beautiful properties that mostly institutional companies own, and dividing it into shares and selling as low as $500 in this market. In the United States, as low as $20,000 to get in. But that's a very low cost compared to the millions of dollars it costs to buy into those properties on a normal basis. So we started this company in 2018. We have our licenses now, and we're really trying to plant our flags in other countries so we can provide this opportunity globally in a legalized, regulated fashion. That's our goal. Thank you.
This is a follow-up to that. You mentioned the Middle East. So how is the regulatory out there?
Yeah, so they're following the same compliance. I mean, right now they're really trying to figure out, everyone's trying to figure out cryptocurrency, because that seems to be the most popular, because I think the young people understand cryptocurrency, but it's also the most risky and the most dangerous. So they're trying to figure that out, but with regards to digital securities, we follow the SEC, which is the Security Exchange Commission in the United States, which allows stockbrokers to sell stocks on the stock market. And I believe that in the Middle East, they're doing the same thing. For real estate securities, or any digital securities, they're using the SEC format as a compliance method. So we had to take tests. We had to go through a 1.5-year process of evaluating our technology. We had to hire people who are licensed stockbrokers to be able to be on our team to sell. So that's what we're doing to really make sure that you're safe when you make an investment. You want to make an investment that somebody has checked out and somebody who's regulated sells to you, because if anything goes wrong with your investment, you can come back and blame them and sue them. So that's the difference between somebody selling you a cryptocurrency who's not regulated and somebody who's selling you a digital security who is regulated. Thank you.
That was the last question for that session. So I won't bother you with another one. So over to you, Julia. How can asset tokenization improve operational efficiency within the financial market, and within specific advantages, how does it offer the various advantages for platforms such as SafariX? And could you also talk more about what SafariX does as an intro as well, for the people who aren't quite familiar with it?
Okay, Juliana Mwangi, I'm into cross-border payments. At SafariX, we help you move money basically across borders. Tokenization for companies such as SafariX and fintechs, they are important in such a way that it's a new asset class, and let's say you want to get a loan. I think it's possible for you to get your loan against stablecoins such as USDT, USDC, or Bitcoin. That would be a game changer. Let's say I'm holding my 1 Bitcoin or 0.1 Bitcoin and I need some finances. So I'm speculating maybe Bitcoin will go up or down. So I could just give that as a collateral. So I think that's one of the important things. Also, it increases, if we have tokenization, it increases in efficiencies in terms of like incorporating smart contracts in terms of settlement, and eliminates a lot of middlemen. I think also for tokenization, one of the most successful use cases is stablecoins, because we have USDC and USDT, they have a market cap of over $140 billion, and that's quite a significant amount, and you'll find that most of that money is in Africa. Yes, we have institutions in the West and other countries, but a significant amount is in Africa as well because of the broken financial systems. So I think we should highlight more the success stories of tokenization in terms of stablecoins. Let's give a practical example, like today is Thursday. Let's say when someone was supposed to live here, they should have gone to the bank and do like a swift transfer to a different country. For one, the day is gone. By the time you leave here, it's going to be past 5. But with tokenization, you get to eliminate all that, because if anyone wants a wallet, they are 5 minutes away from getting a wallet. And once you are able to get that wallet, you cut out a lot of middlemen costs. If you've done a SWIFT, you know how it can be frustrating. Like it's Thursday, if you do it on Thursday, on Friday, you lose out on Saturday, on Sunday, not mentioning the costs. So I believe we should work hand in hand in sensitizing and educating more people about highlighting the success stories of tokenization. Yeah.
Hopefully the organizers of the KBCC will also highlight them as part of the education programs for the masses for the post-conference. So over to you, Ali. What are the primary challenges and barriers to widespread adoption of asset tokenization, and how can these challenges be overcome?
Challenges. Standardization, I think, is one of the first challenges that anyone has. And, you know, standardization is, how can you end up tokenizing one asset and then trade it on a specific market if that market does not, you know, integrate within the laws of that country, right? So that intertwines regulatory challenges as well as standardization, so that some places you may not be able to get your funds out, so you need to be able to end up standardizing, you know, the asset itself, okay? Or you need to be able to standardize it in a fashion where you're able to end up trading the token. Now, associated to that, you have the regulatory challenges. Just like Ed mentioned, individuals who want to purchase real estate in one market may not necessarily be able to purchase real estate in another market, right? And the inability to actually purchase those tokenized assets can end up becoming a challenge because of the lack of regulation in certain countries. So for instance, Kenya may not necessarily allow tokenized real estate, but you might have someone trying to do that, and there are laws related to crowdfunding over here that prevent individuals to actually raise capital. But it's your own property. It could be even, agriculture, for instance. So these are some of the challenges. You also have market fragmentation. You have so many different exchanges coming up, and you have so many, only so many people that are on different exchanges. So the high number of exchanges and the individuals that are spread out make it very difficult for the transfer of assets. Okay? The other aspect is cybersecurity. Blockchain is as secure as one can say it is, but there are still hacks, and we know that. All right? And the last thing is, here in Africa, and this is something that we're involved in, I'll tell you a little bit more, you have a lack of education. Okay? There's still, Africa is still a nascent, economy, a nascent environment. And I think this is a challenge to end up, educating more people on the continent, and more people globally on what tokenized assets are. So I think this is something that, these are some of the challenges and some of the barriers to entry. What we do at MediaPix, we own a number of different publications. One of the publications is Web3Africa.news. And we have our editor over here in the audience. But at the same time, we created something known as the Web3 Africa community, in which we, I don't want to say tokenized identity, but what we did was we partnered with a NASDAQ-listed company to digitize identity. And what we're doing now is we have about 40,000 people in our community. We have about 28,000 from Nigeria, about 4,000 from Kenya, and the rest spread around different parts of East and Southern Africa, and some in West Africa. But in total, it's about 40,000 people, and they end up essentially, once their identity is verified, and BioKey, our partner in the US, because they're NASDAQ listed, they have that legitimacy. Once they're verified, individuals are able to end up doing tasks and getting paid on crypto. Now, again, people are still quite, skeptical of this. We have our own regulatory challenges in terms of bringing that over here, and I know that there are certain regulators over here in the audience. I'm sure I'm going to be questioned after, but it's a situation where, we are trying to push this out because people who get paid on crypto don't necessarily pay taxes, so that's another aspect. So I think these are some of the challenges associated.
Yeah, I just had a comment to that because, in terms of the regulatory framework, I want to just make sure that everyone understands. We're allowed to sell digital tokens to anyone in the world. With the United States, there are certain requirements that United States citizens have to be compliant with. For example, they have to be accredited investors, which means they meet a certain income level. But there's Reg S, which is all international investors can come in and buy without meeting that accreditation level standard, because the United States doesn't have any jurisdiction over international investors. And to his point, I think he's correct that there's been a problem with seeing projects around the world to know what to buy and have options around the world, which is why we're here. We think that putting projects on our platform in many different countries allows someone to go on the platform, see what's happening in Canada, look what properties are in the United States, look what properties are in Dubai, look what properties are in Kenya, Nigeria, and be able to buy any one of those properties. Now, in terms of regulatory license, we can't come in on the ground here and open an office and start selling shares to individuals without a local license from the CMA, which we are applying for. But we cannot do that right now, but we could sell shares for a person's sponsor's property on our platform to people from China, people from Mexico, anywhere in the world. And right now we have about 20,000 investors on our platform, of which 40% are international. So I'm just want to make sure we understand that.
Thank you for the clarification. So over to you, Trevor. You've been quiet for a while. So how does asset tokenization impact the liquidity of traditionally illiquid assets? And what implication does this have to investors and financial markets? And also, could you tell us about what you're doing for the people who are here that aren't quite familiar with your work?
Yeah, thanks. So Alpha Block is tokenizing real-world assets. We're starting off with real estate. So similar to what Ed is doing, I think, Ed, maybe do you focus on retail or institutional investors more?
Great question. In the US, we focus on institutional investors, and overseas, we're focusing retail investors.
Okay. So we focus on retail investors. And the reason is because when you the point is to give people access to an asset class that they didn't have access to before. You see, in like the global North America, Europe, people had the opportunity to create generational wealth because their grandparents were able to buy real estate for cheap. That real estate grew in value. It was handed over to their parents. And today, Generation Y is basically the millennials are getting, there's the biggest wealth transfer that's happening right now across the world. But it's not happening in Africa because we didn't get that opportunity to buy assets that are stable, that grow in value, because our financial markets were not as mature, and we didn't also have the capital to be able to buy these expensive assets. So it basically, when you fractionalize the asset, it opens up the market for you to be able to sell or for people to invest into that asset class from, the people who are not able to access it before. So you think about maybe someone who's just got a good job at Microsoft or a good job at Safaricom, they just graduated from school. They have a bit of extra cash, but there's no way they can buy real estate because it's too expensive, the loans are too expensive, and also they're afraid of fraud. That's one of the biggest issues we have on the continent. So once you fractionalize it, it means more people can access it. When more people can access it, it also helps you create a secondary market. So instead of you having only 100 people that have bought 100 apartments, you could have 1 million people that have bought 100 apartments. So those 1 million people are your market, as opposed to just having 100 people being your market. In case you have an emergency, you can sell a portion of your assets to those 1 million people. So the likelihood of you, finalizing your sale is a lot higher. As opposed to you calling agents, that agent goes, looks for people, those people come and try to negotiate you down. These people are looking for stable assets to invest in, and they're looking for passive cash flows. So it really improves your ability to execute an ecosystem where people can trade these assets. Yeah. I don't know if I got the last part of your question.
How does it improve the liquidity?
Oh, yeah.
So over to you, Kevin, and you've actually touched on it while you were speaking. How can blockchain technology and tokenization improve transparency and traceability in supply chains, particularly in the agricultural sector? And let me just throw a spanner in the works. Taking as an example, I'm sure mostly the Kenyans were in the room. There was a scandal whereby I think it was an avocado farm in Thika, whereby those sexual abuse claims, whereby the potato harvesters, the avocado harvesters were being, they're being induced for sexual favors for work. So in terms of traceability and transparency in supply chains, how can blockchain technology and tokenization improve that? So you can avoid instances whereby avocados are farmed from such farms.
Thank you for the question. First of all, I don't know how blockchain can solve ethics. So, but we will try. What we are looking at, as we touched about this earlier, we are not just looking at where did these avocados come from, but also the process in which these avocados were taken through. Let me give you an example with what we do in our company. We are helping farmers. We realize farmers have the assets, which is the land, and investors have the liquidity. Right? How do we bring these two people together in an ecosystem in which both of them are positively or profitably engaging with each other? And the asset in which the farmer has, the land has data with that, and that data is very, very expensive, right? How do we now take this data of the farmer, the land itself, the production process, even the processes, not just of the land of the farmer, but also the impact that this land has on the farmer, not just economically, but also socioeconomically, right? So this information can be put on chain, and when you're talking about traceability, the immutability nature of blockchain allows us to have these records up on chain, and they cannot be edited. Yes. So that first, it helps in the supply chain, especially from the production point of view. Then when you're looking at transparency and traceability, we're looking at smart contracts. For example, how we work with avocados, we want to understand what is the process when you use satellite imagery to understand the crop health of the avocado, right? So if you're able to deploy a smart contract that states if the dry matter of the avocado gets to a certain percent, you do not need to look for brokers to let them know. The smart contract will now activate that the farmer is ready for harvest. We have cut at least 60% of the value that the broker was going to take from this ecosystem just by using smart contracts themselves. So that is how blockchain technology can really help avocado farmers and just entirely the whole ecosystem.
Thank you for that. So I think over to you, Ed, and it's an interesting question. What are the technical challenges of implementing asset tokenization at scale, and how can they be addressed, considering you've done it?
I think the biggest problem we're having is not really technical, it's educational. I think just getting the awareness out to people that this exists has been a challenge, but it's starting to pick up a whole lot more than it did in 2018 when we started. So now you have institutions like BlackRock, KKR, Hamilton Lane, they're putting billions of dollars of money into the blockchain technology, tokenizing some of the largest funds in the world. So now people are waking up to it and realizing liquidity is very important in real estate. Think about a property owner who has, let's call it $100 million worth of real estate, and they have a loan on their real estate of $50 million. That means they have a $50 million worth of equity in their real estate. That real estate owner cannot get his or her equity out of that real estate until they sell it. Well, that means that $50 million that's in that real estate is a misuse of their opportunity cost, because that money is just worthless. It's just sitting there until they sell. Well, when you tokenize, we can actually pull 90% of that equity, that $50 million, so $45 million can come out of the property, while he still has 100% GP control. GP means he manages the property on behalf of the shareholders who've just come in. And as long as he pays them what they're allocated as what we call a preferred return, then when they go over that amount, so if he makes 10% per year, and then next year because prices went up, he's now making 15%, that additional 5% the GP can split with the LP shareholders, which means the GP is now making some strong capital gains with very little equity in his property. And I think that's a monumental change for real estate that never existed before, which is why you're seeing so many people rush into tokenizing assets, is to get that liquidity out. And on the other side is the investor who's going into real estate. Many of you and many people around the world don't participate in real estate because it's too expensive, and you don't want to keep your money. You don't want to tie your money up. You put if $10,000 is all you have in your bank account, you're not going to put it all into a piece of real estate and not know when you're going to get out. That's the worst situation for an investor. You have to be very wealthy to be comfortable doing that. But now you can take that half of that $10,000, put it in real estate, almost like a savings account, because that real estate is paying you a return every single year or month. But when you want to sell it, you can sell it and get your capital back out. So that's changed fundamentally the way investors invest in real estate as well. But on a technical level, I'll just say this. I think we want to work to make it more easy for investors to be able to participate. So you have a wallet. Right now you have to have a wallet, put money in your wallet. Some of this is very complicated for the average people on Earth. But I think as we increase the technology, it'll be more like a layer 2 experience where you just push a button and you just get what you want. It actually happens in the background. So it's almost like having Intel inside. You heard that commercial, well, Intel is inside the computer. So you don't care about the blockchain. You don't even talk about blockchain. You just care about being able to buy a piece of this real estate for 1,000 shillings, and you hit the button, you transfer your 1,000 shillings from your bank to Red Swan, for example, and then you have shillings go into your wallet, and now you own 1,000 shillings. It shows up on your balance sheet.
Thanks for that. Over to you, Julie. So what strategies can be employed to encourage wider adoption of asset tokenization among traditional investors and institutions in Kenya?
Okay, for one, I think regulatory framework is very important, especially for investor and consumer protection.
Yeah.
We've had many cases. They have a token, you meet a bunch of people over coffee shops or some conference rooms, and we've had tons of people lose a lot of money. So if we could have regulators work together so that some sort of regulation and investor protection.
Thank you for that. So over to you, Ali. What are some innovative use cases for asset tokenization beyond traditional assets like real estate and art? And how do they contribute to unlocking economic value in new and unexpected ways?
Oh, I mean, you have so many. You have trademarks and patents and intellectual property, and I think that, you know, that is a very unexplored area. IP, obviously, there are IP rights where, you know, in America at least, where you end up using the IP of a certain, you know, person or company, they get certain royalties. But over here around the world, you're able to end up now tokenizing that IP and getting royalties on that. Similarly with music as well, right? You can do that with music. You can do that with even carbon credits. I mean, that's another thing that has been spoken about this morning. I believe Ms. Sandra spoke about that this morning. So you do have, you know, a lot of different use cases. The one case that I look at is that aspect of personal identity, right? You even have supply chain management where you're able to use invoices. If you have, let's say, 30 days of, you know, return on a delivery note, you can end up selling that for 95%, right? Get your 95% of what you're owed, and basically the other person ends up, you know, getting a discounted invoice, right? For me, I'm really looking value out of their own identity. And I give you an example. You have Fiverr, all right? Because of this, people don't have the ability to earn revenue. What we've done is we've given the opportunity for an individual to, I still don't want to use the term tokenize their identity, but use their identity in a fashion that allows them to earn revenue by doing specific jobs. Those jobs are recorded on blockchain. In the same vein, when certain corporates end up bringing on a new CEO or a COO or someone of the sort from a C-level, and they make an announcement, at times their equity value shoots up. So individuals are able to use their identity and demonstrate on a blockchain all their type of work that they've actually done. And over time, that creates a merit-based economy on blockchain, something that hasn't been done. But it also allows an individual to then end up charging a specific amount for a specific task that they end up doing, all right? So these are different, unique use cases, just as an example. I'm sure there are others that you guys can
commodities right there next to you. Avocados, I think, is a commodity. So yeah, thanks for that. So over to you, Trevor. How do traditional financial institutions perceive and respond to the rise of asset tokenization, and what opportunity or threats does it pose to their business models?
I think this wave of innovation is unique because I remember maybe like 12 or maybe 10 years ago when banks were starting to learn that it's not, you don't have to have someone come to the branch, show a physical ID, and sign the document while you watch them sign. I remember for my remittance company, we were trying to educate the central bank on what eKYC was. It took about like 5 to 6 years for the banks to realize that, oh, you mean it reduces our costs? But it was something so obvious for the fintechs, for the younger companies, those companies that have, those founders that have felt the pain of actually trying to send money abroad and needing to go to a physical location, for example. Yeah. But this wave is very different because I think most institutions have seen the previous wave of innovation come and where it has got to now, and mainly I would say fintech. And you would have expected, especially something like real estate. Real estate, especially if you compare it with like the fintech industry, it's really far behind in terms of technological adoption. Yeah. Even wealth advisory, it's just now that we're seeing investment apps and savings apps on the continent. But when you speak about the value propositions of efficient transactions or changing ownership, you talk about access to global markets, improving the auditability of the certain assets that you're selling or trading, it's a no-brainer. And so you're finding these people are actually adopting very quickly. And like maybe you see, like, for example, Ed, in the US, I think your processes are much more efficient in the capital markets, but on the continent, they're not. So it's a big pain that people are feeling. And when you're saying that you're going to do something that is 10 times better than what fintech has experienced, everyone is ready to jump on it. And also, I would say there's this, Bitcoin has really created a sense of needing to pay attention to this market. So people are like, okay, I don't know what it means, but I think I need to learn what it means and what it does for me. So that's really helped the traditional partners, the traditional institutions, adopt it. But I don't think they understand what risks they're actually facing. I had a conversation with a banker at the Africa FinTech conference, and I was trying to explain to him that, do you realize that banking will actually die? Because banks are middlemen. Banks are the ones that control the ledger. And now blockchain is creating a decentralized ledger. So they see there's an opportunity, but they don't realize it is basically the death of the banking industry and some of these industries. But I think eventually they'll start realizing that a wallet doesn't need a centralized entity to manage it, and that wallet could have a loan, could have an insurance product, could have a remittance product, could have a wealth product with no need for a treasurer, for a head of compliance. For all these things will eventually be automated within the next 10 years. So I don't think they see it coming as a noose around their neck yet.
I hope there are no bankers in the room. So over to you, Kevin. In your view, how can tokenization of agricultural assets empower farmers and create new income streams for them?
Okay. The whole ethos around cryptocurrencies and blockchain is about decentralizing finance. So why can't we decentralize this finance for our farmers, given they are our main means of production, right? If you're talking about food security as a SDG goal, right? We need to focus on how this now decentralized financing that is in the ground, how does it get to the farmer? So not only does it increase the farmers' access to capital so that they can grow more, but also blockchain technology, given its traceability aspect, can be able to get these farmers enables these farmers to have a bargaining position. For example, for our avocado farmers, the markets in EU and Asia, they are quite strict on the inputs, right? So if you're able to provide traceability data of what inputs were produced, then you have bargaining power to increase the price. And once you increase the price for the farmers, then the benefits trickle down towards the whole economy. So that is really how blockchain technology can help farmers.
So for me, this would be a final question to all the panelists, and that would be looking ahead. What are the most exciting developments or trends you foresee in the asset tokenization space, and what impact do they have on the global economy? So I think we could start from Ed.
Well, first of all, I want to just say that you guys are lucky to have Trevor in your market selling real estate as a tokenized item, because if you look at growth, real estate has been the foundation for wealth throughout the world. most billionaires, millionaires have at least 30 to 40% of their wealth in real estate. Why? Because it continues to increase in value. So I think what's the future? The future in our eyes is that everything, every income producing property will be tokenized. Why? Because it makes it more efficient for people. We look at real estate at an even higher level. We look at what we're doing by tokenizing real estate. We're actually in the investment arena, what I've been in for 20 years with Cushman & Wakefield. Tokenization, or real estate itself, is an alternative investment, which means a risky investment. And the reason why it's risky is because you can't get out of it whenever you want to get out of it. And so by tokenizing real estate, we're actually de-risking real estate as an investment class, which institutions like, pension funds like. Look at some of the pension funds in here and also Nigeria who've lost almost 40% of the value because of devaluation of the currency. Had they invested their money into real estate in Dubai where the dollar is current, or United States, they wouldn't have lost that value. So I think you're going to find more people looking at real estate, especially since they now have that liquidity option. And I think every real estate, everything like gold mines, like toll roads, power plants, you name it, will be tokenized in the future. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you for that.
I'm glad that you brought up mining. I think, tokenized mines in Africa are going to end up growing. I see DeFi growing quite a bit, and I see TradeFi. And what I also see is the securitization of essentially equities, all right? It's very difficult over here for people in Africa to end up purchasing equities in North America or in the UK or Europe or even in UAE, for instance. And you're now seeing markets basically, come up where they're allowing this to happen. And our eyes are actually blind over here, but there are a number of different exchanges out there that we can end up buying a certain portion of a share of Tesla or a certain portion of a share of Amazon, for instance. Now, those markets are again, questionable. Do you want to invest in those? But we're seeing more and more of that. So TradeFi is actually growing. I see that. I see DeFi in the context of, we had over here in Kenya a number of, you could say these sort of Western-backed, VC-backed entities that were providing loans. But now you're actually looking at opportunities where you have, crypto-backed entities that are providing loans to individuals who are KYC verified, right? So that's growing as well. So I see some of these, growing, but I really do see the tokenization of mines, because I do know of 2 people in Ghana that have actually done this, and they've raised a significant amount of capital, and the government has allowed that. So I'm sure we're going to start seeing more of that in other parts of Africa.
I'm very glad that they're talking about tokenizing something to do with land, because land always will increase in value. And you've talked about TradFi and DeFi. I'd like to talk about TreeFi, because we understand the world in which we live in, it's consistently regenerating itself, right? So how do we, as blockchain frontiers, pioneers, right, especially in our space, Trevor's talked about banks having a noose around their necks, right? It's not just banks. So many institutions will fall down if they do not adopt technology. So for ReFi, how do we ensure that the planet in which we're living in is consistently producing and sustainably producing? And I believe by tokenizing these assets, whether it's avocados, coffee, whatever sort of regenerative asset, we'll be able to really get more economic value than what we are getting right now. Thank you.
Okay, for me, tokenization brings the global economy closer to us. With fractionalization, it's possible for you to own part of a building in London or whatever part of the world. So it kind of gives all of us an equal playing field in terms of investing. I would also like to look at it in terms of benefits towards climate change. Let's say if we tokenize carbon credits, and we can be able to sell, even if we have big companies that maybe have not invested in carbon credits, they can be able to buy from smaller companies, which contributes to the greater good of the climate in the world.
Thank you for that. Trevor, lastly.
I think I'll give a different perspective. For me, I like to remind the audience, because I know there's a lot of builders in the audience, and a lot of the builders in the audience are also African. We have to realize that there's an amazing opportunity that's happening right now in the world, and the opportunity is actually Africa. And because not a lot of things have been built, and because not a lot of, there's a lot of inefficiencies in all our markets, this problem we're solving is a very high value and high importance problem that we're solving. So tokenization increases the ability to build our capital markets from scratch, because a lot of our capital markets are basically 2 or 3 companies. But on top of that, we are building it from scratch in our own way. So it means that whatever infrastructure we're building, it's actually something that the rest of the world will be looking up to be able to achieve. And with the advent of AI and being able to build things a lot faster, it means we can be really, really ambitious. People say that India is the next frontier for the rest of the world in terms of growth, but who's to say that in the next 20, 30 years that the type of technologies that we get, you know, when you're tokenizing asset, it means you can do due diligence on it almost instantly. It means you can access the asset instantly. It means you can bring capital into these projects very quickly. And if Africa is the frontier, and we tokenize Africa, it means we will suck global liquidity into Africa and create something that has never been seen before from scratch. So that's the opportunity we have, and I believe that we need to remember our responsibility around being able to take advantage of this opportunity.
I guess we can conclude from the speakers that it's an exciting opportunity that lays ahead of us. So if I could kindly ask the speakers, we take a group photo and we invite the next panel afterwards. Thank you.